Hello everyone and welcome back to Belo Horizonte. So it's Saturday morning now, and today I'm actually heading off to a town called Ouro Preto, Portuguese colonial town that is about a two and a half hour coach journey outside of Belo Horizonte. So I'm really close to the coach station. I'm going to jump on the coach and have a look around this city. It's one of the most famous towns around Belo Horizonte, and they have these colonial Portuguese towns that are very famous and meant to be very beautiful as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know some of the history. So this is the coach station in Belo Horizonte, right in the heart of the centre of the city. And this is where I'm going to get my coach to go to Ouro Preto. Right, I'm on the coach now, just looking for my seat. Oh, here we go, 17. So we've just left the coach station now, and the journey time to Ouro Preto is about 2.5 hours. So this is called Praça de Estação, or the station square, and this is actually an art gallery or an art museum. Here you can see the municipal park, really beautiful park, some really interesting trees and plants. And this is the Avenida Afonso Pena, one of the main avenues in the city. Right, so I'm now in Ouro Preto. The journey was 2 hours exactly, and from the bus station to the town centre is about a 10-minute walk, so I'm nearly there. Yeah, the weather's really nice. It's quite cool actually, with a bit of wind. I think it's about 21 degrees. So yeah, really excited to be here. So now in the centre square of Ouro Preto. This is called Praça Tiradentes, or the Tiradentes Square. It looks like they're preparing for some sort of concert because they've got music being played and lights set up on the square, so I think they might have a party or a festival going on. So I think it's actually a Christmas party they're preparing for, due to the Father Christmas statue at the bottom. So I think this is Tiradentes on the top of the column. This town actually used to be called Vila Rica, or Vila Rica, and it's always been a mining town, so there's always been quite a lot of wealth, quite a lot of money in the city due to the natural resources that are in the surrounding area. And it was actually the capital of Minas Gerais for a long time, so from 1720 to 1897 it was actually the capital of this state. So the name Ouro Preto comes from ouro, which means gold, and preto, which means black in Portuguese. It's called that because the gold that they found in this region in the mines was covered in iron oxide, which was black, which covered the top of it. So that's where the city gets its name from. It's interesting to remember that this whole town was built during the era of slavery. So this entire place was built on the back of slavery. Slavery wasn't abolished in Brazil until 1888. So the vast majority of these buildings here were built during the time that slaves were still present in Brazil. So that's sort of part of the history of this whole place. The building right behind me is called the Museu de Inconfidência Mineira. And this is actually a really interesting part in Brazilian history because it marks the episode in which the Brazilians tried to get their independence from Portugal, and this occurred in 1789, so same year as the French Revolution, sort of coincidentally, I think. It's actually rare that the Brazilians tried to gain their independence from Portugal before, 1822 when they did get their independence. So this marks that event, and Tiradentes was the leader of that revolt or that movement, and he's become a sort of symbolic Brazilian hero in history for doing that. Here at the Inconfidência Museum you can see this plaque. So it was inaugurated by Dom Pedro II on the 2nd of December 1846. I don't know if that's the museum or just the building. It also says that the president of the province, Quintiliano José de Silva, was present. So, yeah, that's really interesting. I think because it's Saturday today, the town's really busy. Lots of people coming to visit, lots of tourists, and a lot of young people as well, school trips, maybe people from university as well. So, very humming, very busy, the town centre. So Ouro Preto is surrounded by hills, and you can see just how green and lush the countryside in Minas Gerais is. Really beautiful. This church is called the Igreja Nossa Senhora de Carmo. Nossa Senhora just means Our Lady, and it was actually designed by someone called Aleijadinho, who was a sculptor and architect, and he designed the facade and the church itself. So this is from the 1700s. It is closed today, so we can't go inside. It's been really well preserved, and you can see all the features really well. I think it's the Baroque style. Ouro Preto is built on a set of hills, so very steep, up and down, and it seems like everywhere I've been to in Minas Gerais is built on hills, so it must be a very hilly region, and I think the Portuguese must have liked a hill when they were doing the colonisation here. So here we've got what looks like an artisan market going on, lots of different products, and over here I think is the church of Saint Francis de Assisi. This one's actually got a sign, so this is the church of Saint Francisco de Assisi. So it's designed in 1766 by Aleijadinho and is considered his masterpiece as both an architect and sculptor. Its Rococo style was transformed by the master's genius. Wow, okay, so this is such a beautiful church, quite a small church, and it looks like they've got a string group ready to play something as well, which is really cool. So this is one of the main tourist attractions in the town, and it's got this really ornate sculptures on the exterior, on the facade. Very impressive. So the San Francisco of Assisi church is very beautiful, and you can see some of the history of Aleijadinho, the main sculptor and architect of Ouro Preto, who is actually from this town. It's a very beautiful church. Ouro Preto has very much a Portuguese feel, even though the main architect, Aleijadinho, was Brazilian. He was born here. It's got that Portuguese colonial style to all of the buildings, really, not just the churches, but the houses and the residences as well. A lot of them are very colourful, but they're these low-rise buildings, and the streets are covered in cobblestones, so that means you have to just be a bit careful when you're walking around. But it's a very pleasant town, very beautiful, and you can feel the history here. It must be one of the oldest towns in Brazil, I think. So I'm just walking down a side street now, off the main square, off the Praça Tiradentes, down another hill, and I'm just trying to get my bearings and find out where stuff is, and having a bit of a nosy at the same time. So there's actually a lot of shops and cafes and restaurants on this street, so quite a busy commercial street, I think. I've just stopped for lunch in this place called Churrascaria Ouro Preto. It's a traditional barbecue and buffet restaurant. It looks really nice, the food looks amazing. It's kind of late for lunch, to be honest. It's 20 to 4, so I had to kind of get in and really go and have something. I'll show you what I've got. So I've got some beef and some crackling beans, rice, feijão tropeiro, which is rice with eggs and meat, and this thing called tutu, which I've not tried before, which is blended beans, and I've got a guarana as well. So this cost me 47 reais, and the drink was 5 reais. The quality looks really good, and it's just off the main square, so it's in a good location. My lunch was delicious. It's just what I needed. The beef was really well cooked, and the beans were really well seasoned, very flavoursome. Yeah, so I'm feeling really energized now, feeling really good. Coffee time. So lunch has really revived me. I'm feeling really good now and about 100% more energized, which is cool. I'm just kind of walking around slightly randomly. I haven't been able to find a map or a tourist information centre, so I'm kind of winging it, which is fine because it's also fun just winging it and looking around the place on your own. These streets are really historic. They've got a really old-fashioned feel to them. Lots of history. Feels very Portuguese. I feel like I could be in Lisbon or Cascais or something like that. Yeah, so a lot of old-style colonial buildings and cobbled stone roads. Here's another historic site, the Casa de Tiradentes. So his real name was Joaquim José da Silva Xavier. Tiradentes is literally the tooth puller. So he lived here until his death in 1792. So he was executed for his plot, for his role in the plot of the Inconfidência Mineira. Yeah, when he died, his house was actually pulled down because he was known as a traitor. So it must have been rebuilt after that sometime. But this is an important spot for the history of Brazil. It was where Tiradentes lived. So the streets in Ouro Preto are very atmospheric. I did read online that it's meant to be one of the most haunted towns in Brazil because of all the slaves who died when they were making the city. So yeah, you can imagine at night it might be quite spooky walking around these streets with all the ghosts knocking around. So this church is called Nossa Senhora de Rocio. So this looks more like a chapel, to be honest, by the size of it. It's quite a small building. This is definitely one of the most interesting places I've ever been to in Brazil. Really beautiful place, very historic. You can just feel the history in walking around the streets and in the city centre. One thing I would say is that it's very hilly, so bring some good walking shoes and bring some water just to keep hydrated, because yeah, you will do a lot of walking while you're here, and it can get quite hot. So this part of town is called the Largo di Rosario, and this is where the church is. It's called Nossa Senhora di Rosario. So all of this town was created from the wealth of the mining industry that is in this area of Minas Gerais, and a lot of that money was channeled into the Catholic Church, and that's why there are so many churches and chapels and beautiful buildings that are from the Catholic Church. So Ouro Preto is actually much bigger than I was expecting it to be. It's actually, a proper thriving town. Obviously the main industry is the tourism industry, but I thought it was going to be relatively compact, but it's not. The churches and the main touristic bits are quite spread out, so yeah, there's quite a bit of walking here, but that's also good as well because you get to see the different areas and different parts. But it is a very charming town, very beautiful place, and lots of little squares, streets, bridges, churches and things like that, very quaint. So, Ouro Preto is turning into a workout, an unexpected workout. Good evening, Mr. Dog. I think this is the Igreja de Bom Jesus, or the Church of the Good Jesus. But somebody in the shop did tell me that it's closed for refurbishment, which you can see from the outside. Yep, and then they've got these really beautiful college buildings. It's Collegio Arquidiocesano, so it must be some religious college that was connected to the church. So have a look at this old fountain. It dates back from 1763. This fountain would have been built when Brazil was still a Portuguese colony. It hadn't become an independent country at this stage. That wouldn't happen until 1822. So even though this church is abandoned at the moment and is closed, it's still got its own charm, and it's still got that distinctive Portuguese style, colonial Portuguese style. So this house has got the date 1889 on its gate in metal, and that was the year that Brazil actually became a republic. So I don't know if this house is related to that or it's just a coincidence. So yeah, this house might be something to do with the declaration of the Republic in Brazil. I'm back at the bus station now. I ended up getting completely lost and walking around a residential area for about an hour, I would say. And I made my way back here. Yeah, so that was one of those funny things. Things that have surprised me a bit about Ouro Preto is just how big it is. It's actually quite a big place. And also how hilly it is. There's almost no flat land in the whole of this town. It's kind of crazy. So it is quite a lot of walking and it is quite a lot of exercise, but that's good as well. Yeah, so this is one of these beautiful imperial towns, and what's really significant about this place is that it was the sort of seeds of Brazilian independence. They were sown here because of the movement known as the Inconfidência Mineira. So that's why this place is so significant in Brazilian history. Seeing some of the historic buildings and parts of that today was really, really interesting. And the churches themselves are what make it such a special place. But it's got a real charm. It's got a really beautiful character. It's a really old, traditional place. It's been really good getting to know it today. I highly recommend coming here. Especially if you're staying in Belo Horizonte, you can do a day trip. Yeah, it's been great. It's been a really interesting day.